Sunday night service here at Oakland Avenue Baptist Church. It was a good message this morning Brother Roy brought. It challenged my heart. We appreciate you all being here tonight, and I met with the choir a little bit earlier, and I put a challenge out to them. Years ago, when I was underneath Brother Roy, he talked a lot and preached a lot about fasting. And that's been on my heart for a while. And I'm praying that the Lord will truly use our choir. And I challenge them, let's fast. We need His power on us more than we need anything. That's right. And they took that challenge, and we pray that we will start seeing a change and an uplifting in our choir to where people will start testifying and obeying the Lord. And our purpose for being here tonight is to bring Him honor and glory. There's no other purpose. It's not to be seen. I don't want to be seen. I'd rather for somebody else to take it, but I sure want Him to get the honor and the glory. I want Him, when the choir sings, to say, what's that aroma that I'm sensing from Oakland Avenue Baptist Church, and Him get the honor and the glory that He rightly deserves. Let's stand and let's sing page 177. Let's sing it from the heart. There's something about that name. And let's sing it a couple of times.
Master
75, I will sing of my Redeemer and his wondrous love to me. On the cruel cross he suffered, from the curse that set me free.
Preached the juice out of it this morning. Good to see you back tonight, and those that are visiting with us. And let me remind you of Wednesday Bible study, putting on the whole armor of God, Ephesians 6. If you don't realize it, we're not on a playground, we're on a battlefield. Let me encourage you to get here Wednesday night for Bible study, and then on Sunday the 26th, I mentioned this morning, Rob and Heidi is going to be coming back to visit us this Sunday morning, the 26th, and they were here, I don't know how many years with us as youth director and all, did a fantastic job. And they're going to come down to visit us the 26th, and we're going to have a fellowship meal after the morning service. So do your best to get everybody to come, let them know Heidi and Rob will be here with us, and the little one, and God's blessed them with a little one since they've been with us, so remember that. And then May the 20th through the 24th, the Prophecy Conference at King Baptist will be running van, be leaving the church at 5:30 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Thursday and Friday night. We'll be having our regular Wednesday night service here on Wednesday. So remember, be praying. I'm going to tell you something. If you want to know about what the future is, I'd encourage you to come here, Dr. Doug Stofford. I believe he's one of the best Bible prophecy preachers there are today. I told him my Sunday school class this morning, I'd cut off Van Impe. You say, well, I've listened to him all week. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Something happened to him, and he went over the cliff. You say, I wouldn't say that, preacher. Well, it's time somebody said something, wasn't it? I mean, listen, I can tell you one thing. When somebody begins to set a date for the coming of the Lord, you can just write them off right there. When they say he's going to come at September the 10th and such a day and hour, just write it off. You know that they've missed. That's just like back a few years ago, we even went to Israel, and we were sitting on the Mount of Olives at the blood moon. Now, there's a lot of people gets all excited about the blood moon. I don't get excited about it. Because in my theology that I see, I can't fit all that in that they're seeing about the blood moons. You want to know something about Bible prophecy? Go listen to a man that is, he spent his life, and God is really, he is the best. I can recommend him as the best that I believe you can go listen to on Bible prophecy. That'll be the 20th through the 24th. All right, if our men will come, we'll receive the evening giving. So you come tonight, and then we'll look at the message here. Come on up here, John David. Amen. Salute the Lord, and that's the blessings on you. John David, pray for us, sir.
Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you again for the time we come into your house. Honor, glory, and praise to your name. Lord, we just ask you to bless the service tonight. Speak in our hearts, your work in our lives. Lord, we ask you to bless God and use it for your honor and your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. to turn to the book of Joshua. Joshua chapter 24. Very familiar verse if you're familiar with the Word of God. Brother Bobby was talking about fasting and praying. What would happen this week if Oakland Avenue Baptist Church got a burden like Jeremiah, got a burden like Nehemiah? As Nehemiah heard the condition of the holy city, and the Bible said he prayed and fasted, not just for a day, but for many days. Dr. J. Harold Smith was probably one of the most powerful preachers that I've got to listen to in my lifetime. But Dr. J. Harold Smith in his ministry, he took, I think it was 5 or 6 fasts of 40 days. All he had was liquid. No food, just a liquid and juices. For 40 days. He did that 5 or 6 times in his ministry. It's estimated as over 200,000 people came into the kingdom of God just through that one message, crossing God's 3 deadlines. He preached it at Thomas Road Baptist Church in Lynchburg, Virginia, many years ago. And he preached it on a Sunday night. They were still dealing with souls coming into the kingdom of God as the sun came back up the next morning. I wonder if we got under a burden to fast and pray. I don't fast as much as I should. I know that. I should do more fasting than what I do. But what would happen maybe if we got under a burden to really fast? That's between you and God, and you don't advertise it. That's something you do because you got a burning desire in your heart. And the message tonight ought to help us to do that. I simply entitled, and I use this text of Joshua 24 and verse 15, and I entitled the message tonight, The Collapse of the Family. I wished all the world was here and all the families to hear it. Yes, sir. On Mother's Day, I don't know of a better thing that godly mothers could get a burden about than their children and their grandchildren. Joshua 24 and verse 15. As if it seems evil unto you to serve the Lord. I like these words. Yes. Choose you this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. My youngest son was here this morning, and you know, I have 3 sons. And I was talking about my dad and family altar. When I got saved, we started family devotions. Some of the greatest times that we've had as a family probably wasn't when we was out in some kind of athletical event with the boys. Some of the most glorious memories of our family life as our children grew up was of the evening coming together. You say, how in the world do you get you don't make something a law. You make it in such a way children want to be involved in it. And see, my 3 boys grew up in a family that they knew that they could sit down and talk with Dad and Mom about anything that they needed to talk about. If they were having things in their life and all, they knew that they could come and talk, and we would do that. Usually our family devotion was 10 to 15 minutes, but there was times that it ended up being an hour or 2. You know why? Because we got to talking about the things that's happening in our lives. miles. And you know, if you've never went to your children, there was times I had to go and to say to my children, I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm sorry that I failed and come short and I didn't do what I'm supposed to do. See, talking about the family, as a young preacher, I went to East Park Baptist Church. I didn't take a vacation for 2 years. I didn't take hardly a day off for 2 years. Didn't go fishing. For 2 years, it was drive, visit, go, and I come in one Friday, and I walked into my house, and God didn't speak to me audibly, but it's almost like God spoke to me from heaven. You might win the world, you might have 1,000 in church, but you're going to lose your family. And I went down to my basement and I got some things settled. My family was going to be first. And I made some decisions that day. And Pat came in and I said, honey, next weekend we're leaving Friday. We're taking 2 weeks vacation. And I shared with her what the decision I made. I said, Friday night's family night. I told the church, I said, hey, if you need me, you need to put it off because my family comes first. Friday night's family night, and that's the night I'm spending. And my boys, I determined that I would be there for them and all the programs and athletical things that they went through. The year that Matt was a senior, Jeremy was a sophomore, Todd coached the soccer team through soccer, baseball, and basketball. I drove that old trip bus 9,200 miles. Now, you think I didn't spend some time on the road, but I want to tell you something. I don't regret a mile, an hour, because I've got 3 sons that I have never had a sleepless night over.
Thank God. Thank God.
Thank God for 3 sons that I've never had to go to jail and get them out, never been on drugs, never been on alcohol, never been in the law after them or anything. I'm grateful. I believe the family is important.
Amen. Yes.
Now, let's listen to this tonight. If I just have to stand here and read what I wrote down. The collapse of the family. What in the world has happened in America? As the family is, so is the nation. So if we're going to change the nation, we're going to have to change the family, right?
Amen.
Everybody's talking about the White House. But I want to tell you something. The White House in Washington won't be what it ought to be until my house and your house is what it ought to be.
That's the truth. You say that.
We need to realize Washington is a reflection of the nation.
That's right.
Washington is a reflection of the nation. Our Puritan, and by the way, I'm not ashamed of that word, our Puritan forefathers. Our Puritan forefathers were God-fearing, Christ-honoring, Spirit-filled people. They came to this country to have freedom to proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord, to teach and to preach the Bible, and teach God's holy word and live by its principles. But something has happened today. Secular humanism has erased the history from many of the minds and the hearts of the people here in this great nation of America. See, many people today have rejected biblical truth and embraced progressive liberalism. And by the way, listen to me. We talk about liberalism and conservatives, capitalism. Liberalism always takes you to bondage.
That's right.
Now, you'd think liberalism should be giving you what? Freedom, right? When you use that word liberalism, you think it should be giving you freedom. But I believe that one of the things that helps mankind is the system that America was built upon of the will of the individual to succeed. Now, if you've got more people succeeding, will you not have a better society?
That's right.
If you do not have people succeeding, then what? A few powerful will come in and take the control of so upset every time I hear this. This is a democracy. Let me remind you, this is not a democracy. This is a republic.
That's right, brother. That's right.
And our forefathers, and I believe under the leadership and the guidance of God, set up one of the greatest government forms.
That's right.
You say, why did our forefathers do that? Our forefathers understood the depravity of the human heart. And by the way, let me tell you something. You know, we talk about Republicans, Democrats, independents. You know, it's not what the label of the name is out there. It is what the goal and the purpose of the people should be. And here that our forefathers, they knew the depravity of the human heart. They knew the greed that there would be people that wanted to come to control and dominate the lives of others. So they were in the process of setting up this great republic, and they were having a lot of problems. But you know what they did? They dismissed and went to prayer and called upon God to help them.
Amen.
And they came back and they set up a form of government of 3 separate parts: the judicial system, the legislative system, and the executive system, the president. Now, what they did was they tried to put the checks and the balances in there. And people, if we would have followed the Constitution, we would still be under that. See, when the Supreme Court ruled that school could no longer have prayer, when they ruled that abortion was lawful, there was a means in the Constitution set up that they could go back and overrule the Supreme Court and go back and make the law that would eliminate the power of the Supreme Court. It should have went back to the people, of the vote of the people, instead of, see, the judicial system of the Supreme Court is not elected by the people. They were placed there to put the checks and the balances, so when the other 2 parts of government could not come to make decisions, they made a decision. But if you didn't like their decision, you could go back to the House of Representatives, which is known as what? The People's House, because it represents more of the people. And then what would happen? The Senate and the Congress would come together, and they would pass this law that the Supreme Court has struck down, and it would go to the president to be signed. If it was a law. Then no longer the Supreme Court finally had to say. How many of you got to vote on abortion? Right. Not a one of you. How many of you got to vote about prayer in the school? Right. How many of you got to vote about same-sex marriage? None. Yeah. But you had a voice there if the people we had elected had followed the Constitution. They didn't follow it. They became weak-kneed politicians. That's right. How many of you know what politics means? Bloodsuckers. Politics. Politics. That's literally what. Hey, we used to have statesmen, but today we have this game played on both sides, and I get so aggravated. I'd like to pick both of them up and butt their heads together and say, somebody needs to knock some sense in your head. Well, you say, Brother Roy, why are they like that? They've been raised with progressive, secular humanism. What today is over and over trying to get God out of everything. Just in where was it? In a school system in Pennsylvania, they've ruled out that you can't say, in God we trust. In God we trust. You've got to remove God from everything. Before, see, the Constitution said that our liberties were not given to us by government. They were given to us by the divine guidance of God. And if they were given to us, man is not the one that has the say. It was God that has the ultimate say. So we got to go back and think of our Puritan forefathers that came and set up this wonderful means of government. But today we have seen the invasion of secular liberalism, humanism, and eventually it will lead to socialism, communism, or a dictatorship. That's what it eventually will lead to. See, the collapse of the nation is due to the collapse of the family. The nation would have not collapsed if the family have not collapsed. You know, today families can't even get together and have Thanksgiving dinner because they've created so much confusion in this country over politics. I mean, listen, I found out, if you don't want to start a civil war, just don't start talking about politics. You say, well, you're going to start one here tonight, preacher. Well, we need to stop and to realize what has happened. See, the collapse of the family, the breakup of the family, and as so as the family goes, so does the nation go. But let me remind you something, church. If you're a student of history, when our Puritan forefathers come over here and established this country, and they by the way, how many of you know who started all the Ivy League schools up in the north? The Presbyterian and the Methodist and the Congregational Church. All of those schools were religious schools. Why were they started? To teach the Bible, to teach the Word of God, and train young people in God's Word. And this great nation began to be blessed, and it began to move west and across the Appalachian Mountains and all, and it was mighty blessed. But in about 1725, there's some things that as they started moving west, guess what they learned to make? Any of you from the hills of North Carolina? Did any of you hear of moonshine? They started making cornbread moonshine. And you know what happened? They started drinking that stuff. And like all what happened, other things came in. And you had the debauchery, and you had the falling apart of this early nation. But how many of you know what happened in 1740? You had the first Great Awakening under Jonathan Edwards and these great men of God, Charles Finney and Whitefield and all that began to preach, and we call that the first Great Awakening. You know what happened? They began to beat up their steels, destroy them, turn to God, and they had a great awakening. It was a great spiritual awakening. And then we went along, and what did we start doing? We started going back away from God again. Isn't that just seem like man does? Man started going back away from God again, and we come to the 1856. How many of you know what happened in 1856? The beginning of the great prayer revival that hit here in America. How many of you know where it started? It started in New York City. A man on his lunch hour began to go to church and pray. I mean, the country was getting deep in sin and far back away from God. He got a bird. He went to church and he started praying. Calvary Baptist Church in New York City. And a few days there was a few others started going with him. And a few months passed away, and that church was so full that all the people couldn't get in it to pray at noon. So they opened up other churches in New York City, and they began to pray. And all of a sudden, it began to sweep out of New York, up into Boston, over into Philadelphia, and other. And this is what I've read about the prayer revival of 1856. Oh, God, if we could see this one more time. They said at sunset, in every hamlet, village, and place that people lived in this nation, at sunset, it seemed that you could feel the presence of God move over the land. And that turned the nation back again. We come to the late 1800s coming into the 1900s, and what did we have? We had Billy Sunday and Dwight L. Moody and Charles Finney and these men that came along and had a mighty moving of God that took us in 1905. How many of you know what the headlines in the Denver Post, the headlines in Denver Post? Business closed at 12 o'clock. All the storekeepers and workers have gone to church to pray. The Gazette, the Portland Gazette newspaper closed. Stores are closed at noon. Gone to pray. What would happen tonight if somewhere, someplace, somebody, you say, preacher, can it happen today? I don't believe the problem's with God. I believe the problem's with us.
That's right, brother. You're telling the truth, brother.
And what happened? We came to World War I. And you know something? We went through World War I. We went through the Depression. We went through World War II. And we come to the early 40s. Any of you ever heard this name? John Dewey. John Dewey was the man that instigated human progressivism into our public education in 1942. And what happened? He got into the educational system, and little by little, Darwinism at that time began to spread across the land, and then in 1940s we had as 1925 we had the Skoke trials down here in Dayton, Tennessee. We call it the monkey trials, the Skoke trials, and we know what happened there. That what happened? Evolution, Darwinism, humanism got a grip into the educational system. Dewey came along and he helped it along in a most powerful way. We come to the 60s, and what do we have? We have the Beatles that come on the scene. What was the statement of the Beatles? We are more popular and more famous than who? Jesus Christ.
That's right, brother.
More people will listen to us than they will listen to Bible preaching. And by the way, let me tell you something. Your grandchildren, your children, and the young people today is listening to the most powerful preacher there is on the universe. It's the music.
That's right, brother. Amen.
Of cultism, Satanism, and drugs. Everything in the world is wrapped up in it. And all the subliminal message and everything that is there. And then all of a sudden, evolution began to grow in the public school. It's got to the place today that you can't teach creation from the Bible in the public school, but they can teach evolution as a theory. I'm glad for some states that are waking it up and saying, hey, there is some states that are passing, hey, we're going to return to the Bible being placed back into the classroom. The children want to go and study the Bible, and there's a problem there. If you've got somebody in the public school that is teaching the Bible that's not a true Christian, they can bring more damage than having nothing at all. You understand that? Hey, listen, this thing, the devil, old Slewfoot, he's slick and he is deceptive, and he'll know, and he works in the most powerful way to deceive as many as he can. But see, in the 60s, the Beatles came along, and we had another feller that resided down in Memphis, Tennessee. What was his name? I mean, today, we think that's really kind music today that started, didn't we? But see, if all of a sudden, if the rap music and everything of the day had busted on the scene, how many mamas and daddies you think would have let their kids and their grandkids listen to it? It's just like the analogy, you can throw a frog in a pot of hot water and he'll what? But if you put him in that cold water and put him on the stove and cut it up a little bit at a time, you'll boil the old frog and he'll never jump out. See, that's the way that we've got to where little by little by little by little. So we had Presley, and we had the Beatles, and then all of a sudden we got in this kind of like rock and roll. We call it soft rock. But remember, it ain't going to stop there. Then all of a sudden we progressed to another stage and another stage. And now we're to the place that the home is just about literally destroyed in America.
Yeah, that's the truth.
How many fingers I got up? Less than 4% of the American home is a traditional biblical home. When I'm talking about traditional, where they have prayer together, where they have Bible reading, Bible study together, and where they live by the principles of the Bible in their home. If we really put a strict biblical definition to my home and your home, we would probably come up short of what the Bible's got for our home tonight.
That's the truth. You're telling the truth. You're right. Just tell it like it is. Yes.
See, today, we've got an epidemic of suicide, drugs, alcohol. There was a woman sat in this auditorium this morning, was a registered nurse, had a fine home, had a fine way of life, but she took that first trip on a drug. Now she's homeless, got 3 kids, foster care, and she's searching and hoping some ways that she can get her life back together. Sat in this church this morning. Folks, you never understand who's sitting in this church, and you ought to never come to this church without the power and the prayer and hungering and asking God to do something. I could tell you of people that sit here that's searching, desiring, but listen, it's going to take the power of God, people. That goes back to that thing of fasting it was talking about a while ago. And see, in the 70s it speeded up, the 80s, the 90s, and this thing is escalated today to we are in a awful, dire situation. Why has America collapsed? Because of the collapse of the family. But let me just take a few moments. God's blueprint for the family. We don't have a lot of families built on God's blueprint today.
That's right.
Only 4%. It starts with one man and one woman.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. The way it is.
You know why we've got all of this? There's not a great vast out there, but there's a lot of them in this thing of can't figure out which sex they are.
Yeah.
Let me have you know, if you try to become a student at Southern Cal, no, not Southern Cal, the University of California, guess how many boxes there is to mark your sex? 7.
Yeah. That's right.
Is it that we think that's strange, but see, the mind and all gets blinded and warped and deceived. You say, where is this, Pastor? It's by the power of satanic, demonic control.
Yes, it is.
And you don't understand what the devil is doing in the minds and the hearts of people.
Yeah.
That they're in this, they're blinded there. Now we can make fun of all of this, and we can laugh it off, and we can make fun of the silly things that are being promoted and said for our government, for our nation. All we can see how silly. But I'm going to tell you something: if the church don't wake up, and if God's people don't have revival, we don't have a chance to turn it around. There's going to be more and more every day that's going that way. See, these are confused individuals because Satan has confused their mind.
Amen.
Who's the author of confusion? Satan.
That's right.
He's the author of confusion.
Amen.
And he gets them confused that they think there's something one day and something else.
Yeah, that's right.
See, I believe a lot of the mental problems of today, of bipolar mental problems and everything else, I think a lot of it is demonic powers.
That's it, brother. Yes, sir.
The powers and the forces of the demonic world.
Yeah.
Marriage starts with one man and one woman.
That's right, man.
Not 2 men and 1 woman,
No.
or vice versa. I told you about, I don't know what's happened in New York. The woman is make it legal where she can marry her dog. See, listen to me, folks. When you throw out God's standard, then man will bring in it. When you have not a standard set by almighty authority of God, then you will bring anything in that you think is right. God instituted the family.
That's right.
There's three priorities that God created. He created the family, He created government, and He created the church.
That's right.
Let me show you something, church. When the family fails and when the church fails, government always comes to control.
That's right, brother. Yes.
Government will never control as long as you've got a strong family and as long as you've got strong churches.
That's right, brother.
And the church has never been this weak in America before.
That's right, brother.
The church has never been this weak in America before. It begins in holy matrimony.
Yes, brother.
And we need to go back and teach our children to keep themselves pure until the day that they get married. Have you noticed this? They don't get married in church anymore. They get married out there on the hillside or down there by the lake or somewhere else, out there in the wilderness. Folks, why are they doing that? We've took God and the authority of the church out of it.
He's telling the truth, brother. Preach on, buddy.
The church ought to be the center for that marriage and the starting of two together, coming together pure and holy, saving themselves until that day
That's right.
that they enter into the permanent bonds of marriage.
That's right.
You know, God blesses the marriage.
That's right, brother.
God is the one that instituted the marriage. And, if you'll go home tonight and read Ephesians chapter 5, there is the man and there's the woman. And by the way, God never did make a man supreme over the woman.
That's right, man. That's right, brother. Amen.
God did not take the woman from man's brain or his feet, but He took woman from his side to be his helpmate, to be his companion.
That's right, brother. You're on the right track.
Now, He put the man at the head to be responsible. And men, if you don't treat that woman like, I'm going to tell you, it is a dumb woman won't listen to a godly man.
That's right.
That is everything the Bible says that man ought to be.
Amen, brother. You're right. The truth, brother.
If that man loves that woman as Christ loved the church and gave Himself for it, I believe that woman will make some cat-head mystics for that man.
That's right, brother.
Amen.
Good, brother. You're doing good, sir. Come on now, pour it on me. Yeah.
Marriage was worthy of our Savior's present at the marriage of Cana of Galilee in John chapter 2.
Yeah.
When we see the decline of the family, the biblical family, it is due to most of the time moral collapse. Listen, the devil is out there to destroy every home and every marriage he can.
That's right, brother. Amen.
And listen, he's going to instigate everything he can. By the way, there was a day in this country before World War II, the women were not out there in the workforce.
That's right. Amen.
The man was the sole provider
That's it.
for the home.
That's the way it was.
We sent all the men off to fight the war,
Yeah.
and we didn't have anyone to run the factory, so we took the women, put them in the factories, and we never did see them come back
That's it,
home.
brother. That's the truth. That's what happened. Yes, sir. You're on the right track, brother.
And now, husband and wife working, if you don't watch it, you get a little fuss at home or something, and the devil is a slickster. He's a deviser. He's not omnipresent and is not knowledgeable of everything, but he knows and sees the demonic world of how that we respond and how we act and our emotions and how that things affect us. And in this world of the communication of the demonic powers, come up and start, oh, you really look good today.
Yeah.
And you say, well, that blessed man of mine, husband, ain't looked at me and said I look good in 6 months.
Yeah. Tell it, brother. Come on.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir, brother. Tell
And
it.
all of a sudden you begin to think, and there is, first of all, an infatuation that begins to build, and all of a sudden, what's he done? He's destroyed 2 homes.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Right.
See how the destruction is happening in America, destroying the home?
Yes, sir.
In this immoral situation and all that. And then we've got so busy working, so busy making a living, that we didn't know when our kids come home, and then our kids came home and others came and they got over at the house, and boys and girls got together in homes and they began to have things happening there and all that took them down the route, took them down into drugs, alcohol, other things, premarital sex and all these other things. Not only have we destroyed the marriage, now we've destroyed the children.
That's right, brother. Tell it. Tell it, brother.
And the sad thing about it, churches have so departed from the faith.
That's it, brother. Amen to that. Tell it.
I could spend a long time there, but let me move on. You say, Brother Roy, what do we need? We need a God-sent revival.
Amen, brother. Yes, sir, brother. Yes. Yes.
I'm just going to read to you what I wrote down. Stop playing church. Stop playing games at the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
Repent, confess, be filled with the Holy Spirit, and live under the Lordship of Jesus
Yes.
Christ.
That's the word.
Win the lost to Jesus and teach them how to live according to the Word of God.
Yes.
If I'm not living the truth, I can't do much to help others.
Amen to that.
It's going to shock some of your boots. Stop watching the evil, sinful TV programs. It's got an on and an off, and it's got a channel changer.
Amen, brother. Yes, sir. Amen to that, brother. Yes. Truth, brother.
I do not understand how you say, Brother Roy, you getting ready to say, if I watch that, I'm not in my right mind. I'm getting ready to say that. If you can watch this stupid thing of that comes on this guy, what's his name? Oh, somebody knows who he is. Was that you, Don? Well, I will stand up for Don. Don saw it one time, cut it off, and never watched it again. Would you say you'd have to be something wrong with you sit there and watch that? Yeah. To watch these things called these sitcoms or whatever they are today. I mean, listen, they're not funny, they're stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, they're evil.
Yeah.
Let's just put it down where they're at. It's immoral.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to watch something to laugh at, go get old Andy Griffith's No Time for Sergeants.
Yeah.
Amen. And you know, I've got a thing now. I can go over and I can watch unadvertised Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, listen, that was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good fun. Amen.
Yeah.
But this junk they got today, I mean, it's just cut that junk off. How many of you believe what you hear and what you see and what you listen to will affect you?
That's right. Amen.
Huh?
It will.
How many of you believe if you're driving down the road and all of a sudden there's a certain kind of music comes on, you'll want to speed up? And how many of you believe if there's that real slow comes on, it'll slow you down?
Yeah, that's right.
I remember years ago, East Park, Gunnings, community, nobody wanted to ride with the preacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
He listens to that grocery store music. Stay with the unchanging truth in the changing world. Cultural will change, but God does not.
That's right. Amen.
We live in the world, but we don't have to be a part of the world.
That's right. True.
God specializes in making something beautiful out of that has been broken.
That's right.
You know, I was quoting this to somebody the other day. You know, Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall.
Yeah.
All the king's men and all the king's horses couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again.
That's right.
Man can't put your life back together, but I'm glad there's a God that has grace.
Hallelujah.
I'm glad there's a Savior that came to change.
God, what a God.
You can't go back and change the past.
No.
You know, I'm afraid there's too many of us try to live in the past. Oh, I wish we could have the past. The past is gone.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you would like to go back and call the past back and relive the past, you can't.
That's right.
That's just like some of you, you've been married and divorced, and you've walked through this crisis of what the family can go through and has gone through and all. But don't live in the failures of the past. This is what I tell people. I'm grateful that God is a God of forgiveness and restoration and restoring, and you can live the rest of the days of your life. There's some of the craziest, foolish teaching by some people about marriage and divorce that I've ever heard.
Right.
They said, well, you got married and divorced, and she got married and divorced, and now you got saved, you ought to divorce this one and go back and marry that one. That's crazy.
That's the truth.
Huh?
Yeah, that's true.
God said you can't go back and unfix everything there, but you can get forgiveness and live on the grounds of the forgiveness the rest of the days of your life.
Amen. That's the truth.
And make a better tomorrow because you're making the right decisions today.
Right, brother. Amen. Yes.
People, they want to talk about a constitutional crisis in this country. We got a family crisis.
That's right, brother.